Hey everyone, Michael Henderson here, New Grow Wellness, and today I want to talk to you about our monthly challenge that we have in the month of October. Based on our previous post, we are talking about programming functional bodybuilding, aka weight training, with the practice of yoga / stretching. There is benefits to doing both. As a former competitive bodybuilder and a lifelong bodybuilder, as well as a certified yoga instructor, a yogi if you will, I have had the first-hand experience of practicing both for several years. With weight training, we like to think there's a lot of yogic philosophy in weight training, and there's a lot of weight training philosophy in yoga. They tend to go hand in hand, if we're being honest. Anywhere from a concentric contraction, right? Concentric contraction is the squeeze. In yoga, we would call that hugging in. We would call that muscular energy, that contractual energy, the concentric. If we're talking about eccentric, in yoga, we call that organic energy, elongation, lengthening, right? So just those two principles of concentric and eccentric contractions is very present in yoga and bodybuilding / weight training, if you will. But then there's also that third contraction that even in the world of bodybuilding sometimes is overlooked, but we're talking about the iso contraction or the static contraction or the hold, right? So you have the concentric and then you have the eccentric, and in between those you have the hold, right? Yoga, if you are aware of the fad side of yoga, there's the vinyasa flow is what they call it, and they've tried to turn that into like a fitness thing. And really what vinyasa really means, what it translates to, is just awareness. It's a consistent awareness. It's a pulse, if you will, right? So in correlation to bodybuilding, that's the iso contraction, right? If I'm doing a bicep curl, concentric contraction, as I go down, that's eccentric, but when I'm holding it here, let's say I hold it for a 3 count, I'm holding an engaged, consistent awareness in my contraction. I'm not just letting it hold tense on my joints, right? I'm actually engaging that contraction at the bottom. And here, when you flex your bicep, right, the action of pulling it towards you is concentric, but the action of flexing here is iso, right? So when you're doing yoga, the vinyasa flow is just consistent awareness, whether it's one posture or several postures in a sequence. You're maintaining your hugging in and your extension in all the postures the entire time, whether it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 20 minutes. So there's a lot of parallel and similarities between bodybuilding and yoga. They're both going to work on your nervous system, strengthening your nervous system. We kind of have these, we call it the window of tolerance, right? It's going to expand that. How well can you handle something that's uncomfortable? Can you find comfort in movements, exercises, and postures and situations in life that are uncomfortable? Both yoga and weight training / bodybuilding. When I mention bodybuilding, I'm talking about the lifestyle of bodybuilding, of lifting weights and sculpting your body. I'm not talking about the sport. Those are both going to strengthen your nervous system, so your body can handle more stress, physiologically as well as mentally and emotionally. It's going to help you breathe deeper. In bodybuilding, you have to breathe. You have to breathe deeply. In yoga, you learn how to open your vessel to allow the vessel to breathe naturally. The breath will happen with or without you, right? You ever tried holding your breath? The breath will happen. Yoga teaches you to open yourself up to allow the breath to happen more efficiently. Obviously, we're talking about that muscular density that comes from weight training and bodybuilding, and then you're going to have the nice long lengthening of your body through yoga, right? We like to call it long body, if you will. So that in itself is the macro version of muscular energy and organic energy, right? Root to rise, as my instructor would always say, root to rise, root to rise. Think of bodybuilding and weight training as very rooted. The roots of the tree, the trunk of the tree, very solid. and think of yoga as the branches of the trees, the leaves of the trees, all the way down to the little twigs, right? Reaching up for the sky but rooted firmly into the ground. Um, a lot of people have always thought of weight training as making you muscle bound and tight, where that can be true based on how you practice. I was always taught from my original teacher, my father, to focus on lengthening the muscle in the exercise just as much as you do as contracting the muscle. Again, right? We're talking about concentric, eccentric, organic, and muscular energy, hugging in, reaching out. And if you know anything about the actual muscle fibers, right? We're talking about actin and myosin, right? That's literally how your muscles work. They contract like this, and then they pull apart like that, right? So think of weight training and bodybuilding working both ends, but we tend to think of it as just hugging, which is great, but then think of yoga as, right, gaining strength by lengthening and extending and growing. Yoga is going to help you with the fine motor muscles, right? The fine accessory muscles, if you will, or auxiliary muscles, or the accompanying muscles, however you want to call it, supporting muscles, stabilizing muscles, right? Bodybuilding is going to help you more with the large skeletal muscles, the core muscles. I'm not talking about core just here, I'm just talking about like your pecs, right? Your chest, the push muscles, the pull muscles, your back, your legs. When you put them together, one is going to strengthen the other. In yoga, you have people who are hyper flexible. They need muscular energy. They need to lift weights, if you will. Me, when I was going through my teacher's training, I'm hypermuscular. I'm very strong and stable. What did I need? I needed more extension, more flexibility, more organic energy, if you will. So, for the rest of this month, we are going to be sharing tips. We are going to be sharing programming. We are going to be sharing live video and visuals of all things programming bodybuilding with yoga, functional bodybuilding with yoga. The functional aspect in that is what you would call mobility, right? Yoga is going to build mobility, but strength training also builds mobility. Remember, guys, the muscles are responsible for moving the bones, right? The tendons and ligaments attach bone to bone, muscle to bone. Those get strengthened with weight training and yoga, right? They strengthen, but they strengthen as far as like resiliency, but they also gain pliability, right? Bodybuilding is going to give you resiliency, strength. Yoga is going to give you pliability. It's going to make your muscles pliable, right? Flexible, if you will, right? Think of athletes. Athletes don't want to be muscle bound anymore. Yes, they want to be strong, they want to be explosive, but they want to be resilient and they want to be able to recover, right? So when you're combining yoga with weight training, aka bodybuilding, you're going to enhance both sides of the spectrum, if you will, and everything in between. So if you follow along for the rest of this month, you're going to get just that. You're going to get strength training tips, you're going to get bodybuilding tips, you're going to get yoga tips, practices that you can do in your home, practices that you can accompany in your gym. We're not talking about 2 hours of weight training and 2 hours of yoga every day. We're not talking about that. We're talking about microdosing so we can fit it into our lifestyle perpetually and for longevity. So stay tuned for the wicked month of yoga and functional bodybuilding. Thanks for following along. Peace.